Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special ASMR movie review. I figured I'd start doing some reviews of different movies that I've been seeing in the theaters or maybe at home. Um, I love movies. I think most people do. So I thought it would be pretty fun to do. This is going to be my first soft-spoken video. Usually I do whispering, now I'm going to be doing soft spoken, so I figured I'd try it out, and I think this is a good video just for me to talk about the movie a little bit, my impressions of it, um, and I might do some other reviews in the future. So, to get started, we'll talk a little bit about what Dunkirk is about. So it takes place in World War II, I believe in 1941. I may be wrong. It's Germany is invading France, and the French armies, the English armies are stuck in this one little piece off the northern coast of France, and they're basically doing whatever they can to get out and sail back to England. At least the English forces or the British forces are trying to escape, go over the English Channel into their homeland. The movie is basically all about just this one event, and I think they said there's around 40,000 troops who are on the beach in Dunkirk, and they're just stuck there for long periods of time, and they are absolutely surrounded. As I said, the German army has taken over France, and the English armies are just trying to get out. So that's a general overview. Um, the movie is split up into three different, I guess, settings. The first setting is called the Mole, and that is basically the troops that are on the beach. They're trying to get off on boats, and they have this like pier that they use to load the boats and try to escape. Also, before I go any further, I want to make sure I mention this. There will be a lot of spoilers. So if I've already spoiled something, I apologize, but the spoilers will get bigger and bigger as the review goes on. So there's the Mole. The second one, or one of the other ones, is the Sea, and that is basically the storyline that it follows is this one civilian boat with this older gentleman, his son, and the son's friend. They're coming from England. They're just civilians. They're coming from England over the British Channel to try to rescue some soldiers. That's the second one. The third one is the Air, which is that storyline follows. Starts off with 3 pilots. Again, this is another spoiler. Starts off with 3. It ends up with 1 pilot. That pilot is played by Tom Hardy, and it basically is following the dogfights that are happening in the air. These pilots are flying, I think they're called Spitfire planes, which are, really top of the line fighter planes in World War II from the English side. So it follows that. That storyline is probably my favorite in the movie, even though all 3 are very riveting. I really love the dogfighting scenes, and I thought they were just super realistic as well. So that's a general overview. I'll go through more as we go on. I do have a slideshow, so we can show some pictures from the movie. This picture, and again, spoilers ahead. This scene is basically the first shot of the movie, and it shows the soldiers. They're in the city of Dunkirk, or the town, whatever. They're trying to walk to the beach to group up with the other soldiers, and there are all these pamphlets around, and the pamphlet on it says, it shows this map of the northern part of France, and there's this big red circle surrounding this one little spot, which is Dunkirk, and in that it says, "We are surrounding you." and that's basically Germany's way of kind of warning the army that they're coming for them and that they're trapped, they're surrounded. So I'm guessing all these pamphlets were dropped by a plane, onto the city, and there's like millions of them just kind of around. So nice little start to the movie. I'm not going to go through every scene. I'm not. I'm really just going to try to review this and show, but I want to give some context if you haven't seen it. So um, really interesting opener. And then of course they get to the beach. They try to get off. Boats are sinking. Planes are getting shot down. German planes are dropping bombs on the beach. Um, and I mean, there's one scene in particular happens right after this first one, where there are these two, I think they're called Hell Screamers, the German planes. I don't really know, I might be wrong. But the German planes are coming in, and there's just this frightening shot of these bombs hitting the beach one after another, and the bombs are getting closer and closer to the camera. And then finally, the last bomb hits right in front of the camera, and it's very frightening. Very interesting shot. Probably my favorite shot of the whole movie, to be honest. That shot was, I mean, it gets your heart going. So hopefully that's enough context so we can go into how I actually felt about the movie. Um, I love this movie. I think so far it's the best movie of the year that I've seen. Definitely one of the best war movies I've ever seen. I think Saving Private Ryan is up there as well. It's a great movie. Full Metal Jacket is another one that I love by Stanley Kubrick. I think that's a really good movie. There are so many war films that I like. Apocalypse Now is another one I like. Um, but this movie was amazing. Now, um, one thing I do want to say that's very important, if you're thinking about seeing this movie, if you haven't seen it yet, well, first, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this because I'm going to spoil everything and ruin everything. But if you haven't seen it, it is really, it's not a war epic. It's about the event. And right after I came out of the movie, I thought, you know, they have this one character that they kind of focus on. Of course, there's three storylines, but there's one character they focus on who's in the mole storyline, and this character doesn't talk for the first 15 minutes at all. It has no lines, and in general has very little speaking time. In fact, the movie in general is very, very light on dialogue. Most of the movie is action, sinking ships, planes getting shot in the air, dropping bombs, that kind of stuff. Um, Not much dialogue at all. But with that being said, when I came out of the movie, my first thought was there isn't supposed to be a main character, and I think the director Christopher Nolan did that on purpose. He doesn't want there to be a main character. He doesn't want there to be like this one person that he made up, this fictionalized character in this historic event that gets focused on, and then it kind of distracts you away from the historic relevance. Because this movie is a testament to the event. The event is the main character. Um, and this is Christopher Nolan's way of showing the event the best way he could, which is why I love it and why I think it's one of the best war movies ever. Because I think Saving Private Ryan had that too, that sequence, when they're storming the beach. You heard stories of World War II veterans watching that scene and saying, wow, that was just like what I experienced. Same with this movie. I heard stories of World War II veterans who were at Dunkirk who said they watched this and were amazed by it. I'm going to be flipping through photos throughout the clip, the video. But they were just amazed by how realistic it was, and I think that was Nolan's mission, was to make this movie as real as it could be, and it succeeds very well. So the event is the main character. That is the point in this movie, and it's not a war epic, I wouldn't say. It's actually a very condensed film. It flies by when you're watching it. At least it did for me. It's a short, I think 100 minutes or so, maybe like 103 minutes. So it's not that long. It's short of 2 hours, so it's very condensed. And it's an action film. I mean, if you like action, you'll like this movie, because that's what it is. And I thought that was just a really different take on war movies. You see these war movies, and there's always a main character, and you're always following their individual story, you know, and that's not this at all. You're not, even when there is that one main character, um, again, who doesn't talk much. It's not just him; it's him and the people that are around him. The people, when he goes to a boat that gets sunk, it's about those people too. It's about not just the pilots, but everyone on the beach. And I think that message respects everyone who's involved. The civilians who came from England to rescue, they all are shown respectfully in this film. So I really did. I love this movie. I thought it was one of the best shot movies ever. There are moments in this movie where I was in full panic mode. There's this one scene in particular where, these. So again, there's that main character. Just so I get sidetracked, there's a main character, and then there's two other guys that they kind of focus on who are with the main character. One of them is Harry Styles, who everyone probably knows is in One Direction. He's also a solo artist. So he was in this movie. I knew that going into it, and of course, there's that thought where, if I see Harry Styles in this movie, will it ruin it? And it doesn't. Harry Styles was amazing. He was, amazing. He was really good. He will fit right in, completely believable as a soldier, and did very well. I thought did extremely good acting, and was, I think, a good casting choice, really. But to go back, there's this scene where the three of them, these characters, are on this. They escape and they get onto this, I think, destroyer or some kind of ship, and it's after another ship has been sunk, incidentally. And they get on there, and they go down into the hull underneath the lower deck, and they're eating food, and it's packed. There's all these people down there. There are nurses, there are other soldiers, and then of course, what happens next? A torpedo comes, blows a hole in the side, and almost instantly the whole thing fills up with water. And so there's this just extreme panic that comes over you. You feel like you're drowning in that scene. It's really, really pretty scary. And there's a shot where the boat is turning sideways and the camera is sideways, and so you can see the water just kind of coming. It comes in from like one side of the screen and just kind of goes right over the camera, and just it's a very awesome shot, but it's super claustrophobic. This movie is full of claustrophobic scenes of ships sinking, and you feel the dramatic nature of it. So this is the main character. Again, I don't even remember his name. That's the point. You don't want to know his name. He's just a soldier at this event. This is Tom Hardy, who his character's name is Farrier, and basically most of the movie he has that mask over him. You can't even see his face. You can see his eyes, but he does pretty well. He does the role justice, and I wouldn't say this is Tom Hardy's best acting achievement ever, because he doesn't talk much. He's there to be a pilot, and that's it. There is a scene at the end where you do see him. He lands his plane on the beach and gets taken away by German soldiers and taken prisoner. This is the young man who is the friend of the son of the older person who takes the boat out to go rescue the soldiers. He does end up dying in the film by an accident. Just kind of doing a little general overview of the characters. This is Kenneth Branagh, whatever. I think it's Branagh. He's basically the admiral or whatever. He's the general. I think you say admiral of the Navy. And it's funny. His character spends the entire movie standing on this pier. he doesn't leave the pier for the entire movie. He just stands there, and you see that boat in the background. That boat sinks, and there's a scene where, it's sinking, and he's just standing on the pier looking at it, and just like, just so distraught by watching all these people just drown in front of him right next to this pier, and that kind of adds another. It's just a interesting way to take this big star like this and just kind of keep him on this pier. He's not in the water. He is getting bombed, but he's just kind of acting as a leader in this one spot in the entire movie. So I thought that was very interesting. A lot of scenes take place on this pier as well. And another good thing, just kind of going into the style of the movie. The movie is 100% real. I think the special effects are extremely minimal. When this boat in the background sinks, it sinks. It's not computer generated. It actually sinks. They went out, got a ship like that, and sunk it. The planes that they used actual planes styled from that era. Of course, there are some special effects, but most of it's real. And another thing about the dogfights is, you may watch a World War, any movie about war, and you see planes getting shot in the air and they're exploding, the huge explosions in the air, and they're taking a bunch of fire. But in this movie, they don't explode in the air. They get shot, they start to smoke a little bit, and then they slowly kind of go down and they land on the water, and then maybe the pilot lives, maybe he uses his parachute, maybe he doesn't. Not only that, but they don't always hit. The pilot may, a great thing they do in the dogfight scenes is they put a camera right behind the windshield so you can see the little target that the pilot would see, the crosshairs. And so you're kind of playing the role of the pilot when you see that. You feel like you are the pilot of this plane, and you're trying to aim for this German plane in front of you. You're trying to line it up just like they are. And there are shots where they line up and they miss. They miss the plane. There are other times where maybe a couple bullets hit it and then it starts to smoke. So it's very realistic in that way. Very real, raw, gritty. Also, the whole movie is cloudy. I don't think there's any sun at all, which I don't know if that was how it really was that during this time, but it's always cloudy and dark and gloomy and kind of like rainy, a little bit. It's very kind of like a very dark feeling to it, which I like too. And another thing that I really, really want to mention is the sound of this movie. The sound is probably my favorite thing about this movie. I think that, I'll skip ahead a little bit, the sound, especially actually this is a good example, the scenes when, again, these German planes are swooping down over the beach and just dropping bombs and stuff. It is so loud. You're in the theater, and your ears are just shaking because of how loud this movie is, and the sounds are real. They don't have any tinniness to them. They're raw and they're scary. So I think the sound is secretly the best part about this movie. I really do, and I think most people know that. Like, once you get out watching this movie, you're just kind of like, you feel shell shocked because it's pretty intense. So yeah, I think overall I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. We can kind of talk about the storylines. I didn't talk too much about the storyline with the older gentleman and the two boys. On that storyline, they pick up a random English pilot who was shot down, and he's shell shocked. So they pick him up, and he's kind of wily, a little erratic. And it's Cillian Murphy. If you know Cillian Murphy, he's been in other Christopher Nolan movies. And he's been shot down, and then eventually he flips out because the boat is going back towards the battle, or the beach, and he wants them to turn around, and then he gets upset, and he ends up, I think, elbowing that kid that I showed earlier, elbowing him in the head, or the kid hits his head, and then he eventually dies on the boat, which that's kind of a fictionalized part of the movie, but um, it's kind of like a subplot, just to add a little bit more flavor to those civilian boat that storyline. So there are some fictionalized parts in this, of course. None of the characters are like officially real, but I do think it does justice to the event very well. And I'm an American, so I don't know much about the English side of World War II. I do love history, which is another reason why I like this movie. I just like seeing adaptations of historical events. I think it's just interesting. Um, but now I feel like I know a lot about this event, and I'm glad that I saw the movie in order to get all that. So, um, there's really so much to talk about with this movie. Um, and let me tell you, a lot of boats sink, which I'm sure is how it actually went down at the real event. So, um, and I guess kind of talking about the end of the storylines, kind of how everything wraps up. Eventually there's the pan shot of all the civilian boats arriving at the beach, and they rescue all these soldiers. And they do say in the movie that Winston Churchill, I think the Prime Minister of Britain at that time, he wanted at least 30 soldiers to be rescued. I mean, there's 30,000 soldiers to be rescued. And there's 400,000 on the beach, which is kind of funny, like their expectations of how this event was going to go. That England, they weren't expecting much. They thought they were going to just get destroyed. But they wanted 30,000 back to be rescued, and there's 400,000, and I guess apparently they rescued 300,000. So that's pretty impressive. And I did watch a video of a World War II veteran who had watched this movie, and he was in tears because he basically really relived an event, and he was talking about when something like this happens, all you have to hold on to it is your memory, and I can remember all of my friends who died there. I can remember who they are and what their names are, and he remembers all of it, but to see it again was very touching, I guess, or um, amazing. So that's going to be the end of my review for the movie. I love Dunkirk. I think you should absolutely see it if you haven't seen it already. And I'm sure there's way more that I could have gone into about this film, but I think I've said pretty much what I want to say. So you can see my rating there. I give it a 9 out of 10 because I think it definitely deserves it. One of the best war movies ever made. In fact, one thing that I thought about was you could compare this movie to the storming of the beach in Saving Private Ryan. It's basically that scene, but extended throughout an entire movie because it's that realistic. Just realism is what Christopher Nolan was going for, and he did very well. So I give it a solid 9 out of 10. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.